Hi guys, me again with my gravelly voice. This is take 2 on this editing video for the label edit. Hopefully I'll make it through this one without flubbing it up. Anyway, in order to edit your labels, what you're going to do is you are going to open up your two best exposures, one for the label and one for the background. Whoopsie, the background, excuse me, which is this. So you'll remember when we were shooting the glass with the label, we took one exposure that was for the glass, for the plexiglass, for if we had a glass or other glass item in there. We took one exposure for that. And then we took a secondary exposure, which was just looking at the label and sort of just ignoring what was happening elsewhere in the image. So we have the label part and we have the full image part. So what I want to do is I want to get this label layer or label image into the same Photoshop file as my background. So to do that, I have a few choices, but I think the easiest in this case is going to be to copy and paste it. So I'm going to go to Select All, that's Command A if you like keyboard commands, Edit Copy, that's Command C if you like keyboard commands, and then I'm going to click on the tab for my other window, the window that has the good-looking bottle in it, and I'm going to go to Edit Paste, which is Command V. Okay, and now I have two layers, one on top of the other. One has the top layer has the label, the bottom layer has the good exposure for the bottle and the rest. So the first thing I'm going to do is, just to keep my mind straight, I'm going to label the label layer. Label, wow, that's redundant. Anyway, but you know what I mean. So I'm going to label the label. Clearly I'm getting loopy. All right. And the next thing I notice, and hopefully this won't happen to you, is if your camera's really on lockdown, these images should line up perfectly right one on top of the other. But if I zoom in, you'll probably notice that it looks like it's kind of jumping a bit. That's because the camera probably moved just a tiny little bit when I was in between the two exposures. So what I want to do before I proceed to putting my label in is I want to line them up. So I'm going to temporarily take this layer and I'm going to make the opacity of it somewhere in the 40s, 40 to 50%. Again, hopefully you will just skip this step because you won't need it. But if you do need to line them up, this is how you do it. So I'm going to make this label layer 48%, sure seems good. And then I'm going to go to my Move tool, and I'm going to use my arrow keys, my left and right arrow keys, to kind of line this up so that it's not ghosting anymore. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit better so I can really see what I'm doing here. Let's see. I think I need to maybe come down a little bit too. That looks pretty good. Yeah, it's not perfect, but we're going to call that close enough for today. Okay, so now that I have these lined up better, I'll put the opacity of the label layer back to 100%. Okay? If you didn't need to realign your pictures, then you're joining us back with the process here. Okay? If you did need to realign, that's how you would do it. Okay? So now I have a label layer sitting on top of my background layer. And what I need to do is add a layer mask to this layer so that I'm just going to selectively reveal the label and see through that or behind that all the rest of the picture. Now, if you were going to do a destructive edit, you could go to the eraser tool and just start going to town erasing all the parts you didn't want to see, but that would be a destructive edit, not what we want to do, okay? We want to do a non-destructive correct edit. And so in order to do that, we're going to add a layer mask to this file. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can go down here to the Add Layer Mask, okay? Or you can go under your Layer menu and go to Layer Mask, and you have two types of layer mask, a Reveal All or a Hide All. And in this case, I'm going to pick a Hide All because I want to hide everything except just the label. And so there's sort of less, you'll see, less work to be done on the tail end if I choose Hide All in this option. And by choosing Hide All, I turn that entire layer mask to black, okay? So the layer mask is now black. Black hides, white reveals. And you notice, I'm sure, that when I changed that layer mask to black or added a black layer mask, that it hid the entire layer. It's still there. The picture's still there, but I can't see it. It's because it's hidden behind this layer mask. Now, if black hides, white reveals. So what I'm going to do is, with the layer mask highlighted, and you'll notice I'm not going to click on the actual picture here. Notice if I click on the picture part of the layer, there's a little box around the picture. If I click there and start painting, I'll actually be painting on my picture, which I don't want. Instead, I'm going to click here on the layer mask, and I'm going to paint with white. So I'm going to go to my default paint chips here. Okay, so the default's by clicking the little one right here. Okay, and then I'll hit my arrow so that white is my foreground color. I'll go to my paintbrush, regular old garden variety paintbrush, okay, and I'll zoom in, and zooming in, I'll begin to paint with white in the layer mask. And you'll notice that as I'm painting, and again, just to reiterate, I'm painting here on the layer mask, as I'm painting, it begins to reveal that layer on top of, or that label selectively, on top of the background, okay? Now I could use my square brushes to great effect here as well if I want to connect the dots on this edge. So I can even, now that I've loaded the square brushes, I have those as an option here, and I could pick a square brush, because once you load the square brushes, you have them for all your tools, okay? And I could paint with white right here on the edge, top edge, excuse me. Scroll down to the bottom, and I could shift click here too, same as I did connecting the dots. It always works to connect the dots. And I'll click here, and I'll shift click up on the top. It's a little tough to see the edge here, but I'm going to say it's there. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to my round brush. Let's see. Let's pick a decent looking round one. And I will just continue kind of painting, and I'll zoom out a little bit just so you can see what's happening. And I'm going to continue painting these areas to get my, I'm going to use an even bigger brush just so I can do it more quickly. Okay, and I'll paint these areas so that you can see my label. Great. I can even keep using that shift click trick if I want, just kind of fill in this whole edge. So I could just go like this on the bottom and then kind of shift click my way through. But whichever, I'm just painting it. And now you'll notice, you can see in the layer mask there's a white kind of an opening in the layer mask, okay? And you see here that I have that label on there. And now I could paint these sections too. And I should zoom in and get a smaller brush, okay? Excuse me. Alrighty. And again, you'll do a much neater, prettier job than I'm doing. I'm doing this quickly so you can see how it's done, okay? But you'll make yours look really pretty and nice. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now the last thing I need to do is I need to fix that edge, okay? And I did show you how to do that in the last video, but I also do want to just show you a little tip in this video that when you go to fix that edge, you're not going to fix it in the top layer because you can't even see the edge in the top layer. You can only see the label in the top layer. So when you go to fix the edge, you're going to have to do it in the bottom layer. So you'll click on the bottom layer. You'll add the new blank layer on top of it. You'll call that layer retouch. And again, this is exactly the same thing I did in that last video. And then again, I will go to my clone stamp tool. I'll set it to current and below. I'll select a square brush. And since I've already loaded the square brushes, I have them ready for me. And then I will option click or alt click on a PC. Click here and then shift click. Okay. And again, I would fix those little edges. I'm doing this really quick just so you can sort of see the sort of full process. So I'll option or alt click, click, and then shift click. And then of course I'd fix this edge and fix this edge. Again, to see how I did that, look at the last video. But let's just call this pretty good, okay? And if I sort of dissect the file, you see I have a background layer. I have retouched my plexiglass edge, and then I've added my label to it. Now if I wanted to crop it or straighten it, I could do that, okay? So maybe I'll crop it slightly, I don't know. I'm gonna hold the shift while I crop so I keep my same aspect ratio. Maybe somewhere there, and then just maybe kind of move this over a bit. I don't know, let's say we like that. Okay, we could save it like that, and now I want to save it with all my layers intact, so again, I'll go to File, Save As, and I will save it as a TIFF, and I'll call this glass label. I'm going to save it as a TIFF on my desktop, fine, and I'll say Save, okay, and when it tells me layers will increase file size, that's fine. Don't save it as a JPEG. If you do that, you'll compress all your edits together. I won't be able to see what you did. And more importantly, if you mess something up, it'll be too late to fix it, okay? If you save it like this, you can always go back and fix anything you messed up. All right? So hopefully my voice will be working when I see you in class next. But until then, here's some videos to help you out.